Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. As you can see, we're back at the Edward Cinema, and I just got out of Avatar: The Way of Water, written and directed by James Cameron, which is a sequel to the first Avatar, which came out in 2009, I believe, which is the highest-grossing film of all time. Um, and all 3 hours of it, which we'll get into that in a second, um, let's just dive right on in. The story takes place. I'm not sure how long. I want to say like a year or a couple of years after the original. Um, this will be a non-spoiler review, just in case anybody doesn't want to get spoiled by Avatar 2. Um, but it takes place a couple of years later. Jake Sully and his wife, I forgot her name, now have a couple kids, and the bad guys return to wreak havoc, and the family decides to abandon their first home and embark for a new home, and that new home has a more aquatic like atmosphere, and they learn to adapt to said atmosphere and learn to be around the new environment and mingle with the new people and all that kind of stuff as a familiar face returns to to take revenge on Jake Sully. Um, the first film I found to be a visual achievement. It was visually it was quite nice to look at, but I felt that it was narratively familiar and just kind of flat in terms of what its story was. It was basically a chosen one type narrative, and I found the characters to be very wooden, and I just didn't really find myself that involved with the story, um, as I was with its visual ideas. And The Way of Water um, is pretty much the same exact thing. I found the narrative to be very uninvolving. I think visually it's interesting. I wouldn't say it's that spectacular. I think the original actually has a little bit more going on than this one. Um, but it does definitely have its moments. Another for the original, I think that it's also too long. The Way of Water is also too long. Like I would say there's like a good 20 minutes that can be cut out to make it a lot more um, tighter. There's also storylines that I feel are just kind of unnecessary, and there's a lot of, as the original was, there's a lot of needing to explain things. This one has to explain a lot of things as well. A lot of narration that I feel is unnecessary. Same thing here. Like, what I'm getting at is that how I felt about the original is strangely the exact same with this one. Right down to like my favorite parts. Like, I think the final battle is very fun. I think that in general, visually, it's interesting to look at. Um, I like when it's not necessarily focusing on the Navi, I guess what they're called. Um, I find those parts fairly interesting. Um, Except with this one, there's a lot more storylines going on than the first one did. And in this one, I just feel a lot of the storylines are just very boring. And also, they feel, um, how should I say it? There's one involving the little brother of the group who is a very annoying character, and also he is responsible for a lot of stuff that happens in the film, and the film never shows the him really feeling taking on the weight of the consequence. Um, I also don't necessarily buy the family dynamics because this one's more about family and about protecting your loved ones and fighting for what you love, fighting for your loved ones. And I just didn't necessarily feel the weight of that either, and just like the film's not about Jake Sully. It's not about those two. Zoe Saldana's character either. It's not about these two. It's about the kids, and I didn't care for any of them. I thought they were all pretty disposable. The closest I liked was probably Sigourney Weaver's character. I found her to be a little interesting, but not quite. And there's a lot of things surrounding their characters that they don't really develop that well, like this Sigourney Weaver's interests with the ocean. There's at one point like she gets very fascinated with the ocean, and we don't really understand why. And that comes into play later on in the film, and it's still kind of unexplained. Um, Again, the little brother is a big douche. Like, yeah, his father maybe doesn't treat him right, but a lot of his actions are very consequential, and they never really, you know what I mean? Like, really, like, like show the boy like really grieving and really processing what he's done, and maybe considering the circumstances around him versus having, thinking more about himself. Um, and some of the performances are questionable. There's one boy, like real boy, that hangs out with the Navi, and I thought his performance was very weak. Like a lot of his line delivery was very dry. Like my voice right now. Um, and the reason for my mouth being dry is because the movie is long. It's a long film, over 3 hours, and I think like that's just like I remember James Cameron making like certain comments, and it's like it's different when you have a story that's actually enthralling and interesting, but this just it's just like the original in that it's just very bland and very uninvolving, lacking so many developments. Um, it's basically a measure of how you like the original. If you really love the original, you might like the second one because it follows in the same nature and the same developments and tones. But if you're like me, where you just saw it as a technical exercise, you're gonna walk into this one and feel the exact same way. Um, like right down to just how things move and just how you like. There's a big chunk of the film that I feel is just completely not unnecessary. Like it's some plot involving a whale, which I thought was just really dumb. And like there's a lot of cutting that I feel was needed because there's like so much like unnecessary stuff. Um, and I feel that in doing so, we would have had a little bit more of a hold to the characters. Because after about, I would say like 20-30 minutes, I just was checked out. I kept watching because visually it's interesting. Again, not as great as the original, um, but I'm not involved with the characters. I'm not involved with the circumstance because I know where it's going. It's predictable. It's like very shallow. It's not in depth, and you don't feel the messaging or the ideas at play with the family, protecting loved ones. It's not emotional, and I've heard that from people saying that it's an emotional film. It's not. Um, and like, I think it's pretty apparent that I just found it to just be almost like copy and paste almost in terms of my overall feelings. Like it's pretty much the same film in terms of my overall feelings, except it's packaging more unnecessary storylines. I think it's longer, and it doesn't earn that length. Um, the characters are very one-dimensional. Like they just rely on one trait. One is the leader, one is the mother, one is the outcast, one is the weirdo, one is the this and that. Like they're all acting on one characteristic, and it's just not enough, and you just get bored very, very quickly because there's not anything else to them as characters or to the story at large, because it's just about family. There's nothing more bigger than that. um, so so while it is again technically interesting and visually quite nice, it still bears a lot of the issues that the original had. It's just developments are kind of non-existent. I feel that it's packaging more stories, and I feel that it's just unnecessary. Um, it's too long. It needed to be cut down, um, and it just more or less just confirms to me just like that I don't get why Avatar is so popular, and the only reason I can think of is because of its visuals. That's the only reason I can think of why this now franchise is so popular. It's because of what it does visually. Again, it's like a really great demo. Yeah, it shows what you can do with visuals, but not necessarily what you can do with a story. And that's the biggest problem with Avatar in general, from the first film to now this one. They just don't know how to bring it narratively. Visually, that's another story, but it's sorely lacking in developments, characteristics, real engagement, like an investment, like just a lot of the fundamentals of what a story needs. Like I'll put it this way: the visuals are great to look at, but they don't have emotions. I'm not involved, and that's the problem. That's a really, really big problem. So pretty to look at, but that's pretty much all I feel it's offering to me. And you know, bar from maybe a small few slivers of moments that had me like kind of, like going from like something like this to like kind of getting up, um, it just has the same problems that the original had, and that's very disappointing. Um, the only difference is that it's longer, it's packaging more stories, but it's pretty much the same. Pretty feels unnecessary, feels um, uh, bloated, I guess, because of all the stories going on. Um, Completely like just uninvolved, but it's pretty to look at. So yeah. So like I said, like visuals are like, I think the reason why the visuals aren't as strong is because the original had some kind of engagement. It's very small, but it's there, um, and thus making the visuals a little bit stronger. Here, I just don't feel involved, and I feel the visuals then are kind of taken aback a little bit, and also just in general, I just feel like the visuals aren't as strong as the original. Um, but as was the original, this feels like a technical exercise. It shows us what visuals can do, but not necessarily what storytelling can do. So, so that's my thoughts on The Way of Water, and a title also that doesn't feel complete. I feel like it should be called The Way of the Water, not The Way of Water. Um, but, so there was nothing more relieving than taking the piss that I was holding by the 2.5 hour mark. I was literally holding my piss in for like 20 or so minutes. And by the time the movie ended, I was like, thank God. And that's probably a bad feeling coming out of a film. So, but you guys let me know your thoughts on The Way of Water. Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys think like I did and you're just like, it's the same fucking movie? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for my thoughts on Avatar 2. We'll see if it makes all that money. I have doubts, but we'll see. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Keep safe out here. I literally lost my mask in the theaters. So, just be careful out there. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.